Welcome, WinDailySports.com. We're getting closer to the football season. Next week, this is going to be Week 1 DFS. This is going to be fantasy football that we are talking, but right now, it's still draft season, and, well, there's a lot of changes in that, and we're going to be talking about that today. My name is John Jansen. Follow me at JJansen34, and joined, every Monday and Wednesday, joined by Tony Jigsaw Cutillo at Cutillo23. You know what? The Fantasy Firebox, I don't know what to call this dynamic duo right here. I don't know what we're going to be called, but I don't
know, man. We got to figure something out.
Yeah, it's not just sparks. You know, we're starting a whole big flame here in fantasy football. Now, there were a lot of big headlines that happened over the weekend and a couple of preseason notes that we'll go over. But the first one is J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins out for the season, which is totally a shame because that dude, it was going to be the year that J.K. Dobbins had this breakout and all the talent he had at Ohio State. And when the Ravens drafted him was all going to be shown this season. It's really unfortunate that we can't see that. But now comes, who takes his place, and that's Gus Edwards. But how much are you expecting Gus Edwards to do? Are we replicating the same numbers we thought Dobbins was going to have this season? Or is it going to be a little bit different? Maybe a little bit below, a little bit higher? Just what do you expect from Gus Edwards now?
Well, the funny thing is about Gus Edwards is I was all in on Gus Edwards even before J.K. Dobbins. Not as a starter, but because if you look at what Gus has been able to do the last 3 years, he is so consistent, right?
Yes, very
consistent. He averages 740 to 750 yards, 140, 145 touches. So you think about it, it's very easy to predict him going over 1,000 yards. Only 250 more yards and he goes over 1,000. So this is a 200 plus attempt carry kind of guy. This is 1,000-yard rusher and probably 6 to 8 touchdowns. So that's very good running back. I don't want to say one, but running back 1B territory.
It's a very solid RB2. It reminds me a lot of, and maybe you'll agree with this, Mark Ingram a few years ago when Gus Edwards was still there. Gus Edwards that season, of course, 133 attempts, 700 yards, like consistent as all heck. But Mark Ingram had just over 200 attempts, 200 carries. He had 202 that season and just over 1,000 yards, and I think 6 to 8 touchdowns. That is just about what I expect from Gus Edwards because he's going to take that. That's the last time somebody at least had an RB1 role. The thing with the Ravens to note, though, they always use multiple running backs, and I think they still will here. Obviously, I don't know how much or who it is because now it's Justice Hill may not even be the RB2 that goes straight up to RB2 territory now or RB3 in that the Ravens depth chart. But I do know Gus Edwards is going to be the main back. It's just that they use multiple running backs. So I still think 200 yards or 200 carries completely attainable and over 1,000 yards completely attainable. I think every number you said there is just about on the spot because I think we can compare this to Mark Ingram from 2018, and those were exactly the numbers. And I think that's perfect. I had Mark Ingram that season as an RB2, and guess what? I was really happy with that. I was actually ecstatic about that because he was consistent. And this team's going to run, so I love the spot that Gus Edwards is in. And I think we know as well the talent's definitely there. Like, the talent's always been there.
Oh, 100%. 100%. You make a great point because this is a run-first team. Right. No matter what Lamar Jackson is, this is a run first team. So I think they're going to bring somebody in. I don't think Justice Hill is going to be that guy.
I agree. It doesn't seem like it. They seem really hesitant to do that.
No, I don't think they're sold on him. I think they gave him an opportunity last year. He really didn't produce much, right? So Gus Bus is going to be the guy. And I'll tell you what, I was in a draft last night. He went super early because here's what you have to look at. After those top 5 or 6 backs, it's kind of all just crumbled up into this trash bucket, and you have to pick out, who's going to be the best out of that tier, right?
Yeah.
I mean, after 10 backs, there's really nobody to look into. So people were stretching third. Even I've seen somebody draft them in the second round. Ooh. I think that's way too high.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's going to happen, though. I think early on you're going to see in drafts, and that's why I'm glad I'm doing my draft, most of mine a week from now. I think the initial news is always going to make, people are going to overreact to that. So they're going to want to get, I have to get Gus Edwards now. I have to get him early because he's going up the board. Just let it settle down. I mean, obviously, if you have a draft that's coming up, you're probably not going to be able to reach for him, and somebody will. But yeah, let the dust settle and everybody realize, okay, he's going to be good, but maybe not like second round type good or early third. Just let the dust settle, and then you might be able to get him right exactly where he needs to be. I think if you're going to compare where he kind of fits now in the running back landscape, I think he's kind of around a Chris Carson. He's around a David Montgomery. Those guys who are good RB2s. I think Gus Edwards kind of slots right into there.
No, I completely agree, 100%, because he's that guy that is going to be Chris Carson to me is the perfect comparison, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, the great part that we have about Gus, though, that gets people excited, is the consistency and the fact that we know he's been able to do it, right? And when pressed for duty, he's been able to put up starter points. So it's going to be a very good pick for somebody, because I think he moved from probably, maybe like the 20th ranked running back to probably about 15 to 12 in that range, 12 being on the high end, 15. But still, if you can get a guy like a Zeke Elliott, and then you could come back, get your receiver, and then you come back with a guy like Gus Edwards, you're starting off well.
That's perfect. That's the exact foundation I want to have for a team to start out with. So now what the intriguing part comes with, because you mentioned Gus Edwards' number. He was the number 2 back for the most part, and especially that Mark Ingram year. He was the number 2 back, and there still was able to be room for Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards to both have good seasons. So I think there is some value in the Ravens RB2. It's just trying to figure out who that is. Are we paying close attention to who they sign, or maybe even just what Justice Hill, what they say about his role? How close attention are you paying to that RB2 role on the depth chart with the Ravens? Because there does seem to be just somebody you can stash on your bench as somebody who can, give you some productive numbers potentially.
I think you really have to pay attention to it. And that's basically because the running back rankings are so slim. So if you can get a guy, just throw a name out there, Melvin Gordon, quite possibly. Guys like that are kind of like are tweeners. Maybe he falls off the landscape and they pick somebody else like that up. You have to pay attention, because whoever it is, just look at what Gus Edwards got last year as an RB2 on the Ravens. That guy, whoever comes in, is going to get that same production number. So he's still going to get you 12 to 15 touches. So you think about it. And if he's a talented type running back, he's going to give you points, man.
Yeah, I think that because they're always going to use multiple running backs. That's just the way it's been in this Lamar Jackson offense and the way they've done things. And that's completely fine. That means Gus Edwards still can be productive, but there is now room for an RB2 in that depth chart to become productive as well. You're tuned in to WinDailySports.com. Follow us on Twitter at WinDailySports. Check out and subscribe to WinDailySports.com for a gold membership, and also subscribe on YouTube, Win Daily Sports. Now, there is an offense that I know a lot of people during the preseason, the first 2 games were, oh no, this guy may not be legit. We don't know if this offense is going to be good. But then Jacksonville came out against Dallas, and Trevor Lawrence looked every bit as good. So I just, with what you saw there and how Trevor Lawrence was, and also the snap count. Now, Trevor Lawrence is on the field for 66 snaps. James Robinson took 33 of those, and Carlos Hyde 28. Are you paying attention? Does that tell you anything about how they might use the running back, or is it just, hey, it's preseason, why would you put James Robinson out there for all 66?
Yeah, the latter for me, man. Yeah. It's preseason, right? The only thing I'm looking at preseason is how accurate Trevor Lawrence is. Who's running the routes, right? Because they have a lot of interesting talent at the receiver position out there. And people are sleeping on that. I'm telling you right now, Laviska Shenault for Sharp, right? Yeah. And right, and then you got Marvin Jones Jr. that everybody just keeps forgetting about. It's a 1,000-yard receiver. So, they have the potential to be a very exciting offense. It's probably going to lose a lot of games, but they're going to be a hell of a fantasy darling, because they're going to put up a lot of garbage points. They're going to always be passing the ball. And this is an Urban Meyer college offense, right? So whenever you see that first-year college offense, it's usually successful at least 50% of the time until the teams catch up, a la Chip Kelly.
Yes, that happened very quickly in the third year. We know that very too well. But I agree with you. I think the Urban Meyer offense will be fine in the first season. I think it's kind of being overblown. Urban Meyer's not going to last. Hold on, I get it. Like we don't like him. I don't like him as a person. I don't think he's great, but he was a successful college head coach. If Cliff Kingsbury can make it somewhat work, I think Urban Meyer, okay, Cliff Kingsbury was just a bad college head coach. Urban Meyer was a national champion, like had Ohio State as the best team in college football type of coach. So I think he's going to be fine the first year. But I don't think, and I want to kind of throw this to you, do you think the Trevor Lawrence bump was appropriately given to DJ Chark, to Marvin Jones, and Laviska Shenault in terms of their ADP? Because I don't feel like they got a big enough bump. Because it's Gardner Minshew is one thing, now a Philadelphia Eagle, but to go from Gardner Minshew to Trevor Lawrence, man, that is a huge leap forward in quarterback production. And to me, I don't feel like the ADP bump has been kind of appropriately given to that.
No, I agree. I think you have to take 2 out of 3, right? I think Shenault has been given the bump because of his playmaking ability. But
yeah, and now with ETN out, I think he fills even a different role.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then when you look at Chark, he's got the ankle injury that you have to worry about, right? How healthy is he going to be? And then you look at guys, Marvin Jones Jr., who's playing Detroit for his entire career, basically, right? So you think about it, and you're like, we forgot about him in Motown. So those 2 guys, I think, indirectly don't get the bump. But I think we see it with Shenault, and I still think we get it with James Robinson because, again, you're going to run the ball a lot with a rookie quarterback. You just are. And he's already been in that offense. I'm not sold on Carlos Hyde. He's just going to be a nice backup, change of pace kind of guy, right? But this is James Robinson's team, and he was the fantasy football darling last year. Nobody heard of him. He was undrafted. He was picked up, and he was like a Cinderella story. So I kind of expect the same kind of production this year from James Robinson.
Yeah, and what is really unfortunate is, running backs kind of thin, and James Robinson moves his way up, and now it's, a potential back that, we could put in maybe the top 15, top 20, and we can rely on his numbers. So the case has gotten stronger for James Robinson and has helped out the top end RBs. Unfortunately for tight end, though, we may have lost, not for the season, but Irv Smith Jr. had surgery, and he's going to be out for some time. It's a shame because he was one I think a lot we're going to take a flyer on, a lot we're going to draft because of the potential breakout. And now, unfortunately, this injury, which again, kind of the theme, Cam Akers, Irv Smith, and a few guys that potentially were going to take this now breakthrough role in unfortunate injuries. Now, Irv Smith is going to come back at some point this season, it seems like, but he's going to be out long enough that it kind of shakes up things again for the tight end position. Just how did it change your rankings and how are you approaching it now? Because we're getting really thin here. It's tough.
We are. And tight ends were already thin, right? After those top 4 or 5, it was kind of like up in the air, right? And Irv Smith, I was in love with Irv Smith. No Kyle Rudolph this year. He's gone. Irv was going to be the guy in a high-powered offense with Dalvin Cook in the back. And you have Jefferson, you have Thielen, you have Cousins who loves the tight end, right? So it was like, man, it's all shaping up. And now, unfortunately, my man Irv goes on the shelf. I'm not looking at his backup at Tyler Conklin, really not doing anything for me. So I think you just look at other names, John. There's a lot of names, in the tight end position, a little bit down the charts. Like guys, like I really like Anthony Fursker. I like Cole Kmet. I really think this is a big year for Cole Kmet and that Chicago Bears offense because I don't think that they're going to be able to hold Fields off the field long enough. And if he gets in there steadily, he's going to throw to the tight end all day long. And it's not going to be Jimmy Graham. It's going to be Cole Kmet, in my opinion. So they're the kind of guys I think we need to look at now with these injuries.
Yeah, it just seems like if you're going to draft tight end, you either get the top guys. And I think this is making more of a case of like Kyle Pitts could be pretty valuable. And he looked great. It was only 1 catch. And, it's not much you can go off in preseason. But yeah, it jumps off the page. I mean, that guy is supremely talented. And he's quick, and he's going to be an absolute nightmare for teams this season. Unfortunately, week 1, he's going to have a pretty not easy matchup, but I don't think the Eagles linebackers are going to be able to handle him, and Eagles are already down at safety. It's going to be tough to cover Kyle Pitts, but that's going to be the case for a lot of teams this season. So what's your strategy with this now? Are you taking because it seems like to me, you either get the top guys or you punt and you wait to get a guy like Cole Kmet. You wait to get down more because I don't know how willing I am to draft a guy like Noah Fant, Dallas Goedert, because it just seems like it's so thin now. And those mid-range guys that I did like Irv Smith, now gone. I might want to punt the position and just take a flyer on a few guys like Cole Kmet.
Yeah, I'm with you. I 100%. If for me, I have a top 5 of Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, Pitts, and Higbee. If I don't get one of those guys, I'm punting. right? I'm punting. Yeah, and again, there's guys that people are overlooking, and when you're drafting a tight end in fantasy, one thing you have to look at is you just want to look at the offense. It's more about the offensive mindset of the team they're on than the actual player. So guys like a Jared Cook, who everybody keeps forgetting about, who plays on a high-powered offense in Charger lane, is a guy you can punt with, right? So he's Gerald Everett goes into Seattle being Russell Wilson's number one guy. You've seen flashes with the Rams last year. So he gets an opportunity. These are the guys I think you need to look at if you can't get those top 5 guys.
Yeah, I think so as well. The tight end position's just it's going to be a mess. So I mean, treat it as such. Treat it as if it's going to be messy, and it may just be worth getting those late flyers. Now you're tuned into Win Daily Sports, windailysports.com. Go subscribe for a gold membership. The NFL season's almost here, so subscribe for a gold membership. It's probably the right thing to do. Now, I want to stick with that game because I don't know how you feel about Baker Mayfield in fantasy. He does, it just seems that nobody's interested, but the guy's more comfortable in this offense now. Is it worth any kind of look there, or is it still, it's a running offense? There's such a cap to what his ceiling could be just because of the type of offense that he's in. I think he's comfortable in it, but is it just worth taking him, because I think he's comfortable. He's going to do well in it, but is it worth taking him just because of the style of the offense?
Well, here's the thing. I actually took Baker last night as one of my backups, right? And only because he was sitting there in the last round of the draft. So he's sitting there in the last round. Nobody took him. And I'm looking at a guy who I think was pretty efficient last year with Kevin Stefanski's style offense. He only threw the ball under 500 attempts, but I think it was like 26-8, something to that perspective. So that's a really good ratio.
And the accuracy got better throughout the season. And if that accuracy from the end of the season works its way into this season, I mean, I think it's going to be fun.
And he gets OBJ back this year, right? So, and a lot of people sleeping on OBJ too. Like I'm not expecting him to be a wide receiver one.
He's going to be a good WR3 for you, though. I can tell you that.
Exactly. You've seen him playing yesterday, and they still have Landry out there. They still have Austin Hooper, David Njoku. They still have Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. This is a really good offense. So why wouldn't you want a quarterback on that style team? So I'm not taking Baker as my number one guy, but he will definitely be a backup on my squad, somebody I can trust to fill in. And again, John, one thing I want to tell everybody, don't forget, the COVID protocols this year are huge when we talk about backup quarterbacks, because if you're unvaccinated and you get on that contact tracing list, you're out for 10 days, no questions asked. That could be 2 games of your starting quarterback out. So you better have a good backup this year.
Funny that you mentioned that, because we got today Carson Wentz is on COVID protocol, and it's largely known that he is probably unvaccinated. So the COVID protocols remain the same. 10 days. He could potentially miss week 1. I mean, this call and the week 1 thing, I don't think any of us are drafting Carson Wentz. I think that's not happening. And I know you and I have seen very closely what Carson Wentz was. Can he be fixed? Sure. It's going to take a while, though. But this Colts team has built through injuries, COVID protocol. It's been a nightmare of a training camp. And they've had a few injuries to their offensive line. Like Quentin Nelson has the foot injury that Carson Wentz did as well. And so, yeah, he could maybe be ready week 1. But, I mean, I don't know how healthy he's going to be. How worried are you about this Colts offense? And especially, T.Y. Hilton, we know the injuries and, we don't know what he's going to be. But we like Michael Pittman as kind of a late round guy or a wide receiver that you should be getting as kind of a guy that's a little bit of a sleeper this year. Paris Campbell, people are saying, hey, kind of still keep your eye on him. But Jonathan Taylor's the one that, look, you can't miss on the first round. And Jonathan Taylor's been, that fringe first round, early second round type of player. How concerned are you with Jonathan Taylor? Because I got to admit, I love Taylor, and I think in some way he's going to be fine. But if this offense is going to be a disaster, I just don't see how I can get that return of a first-round talent from Jonathan Taylor this season.
Yeah, listen, it's tough because in the beginning, I was all in on Jonathan Taylor. He
Great
was
talent.
my number 5th ranked running back. All right. And it changed, right? It changed because of the injuries and because I'm like, okay, so I have to temper expectations a little bit. And I dropped him down. He's still in my top 10, but I dropped him down to like 8, 9, or 10. And I think he's more, feasible to be as a value. But you mentioned the receiving core. This is the T.Y. Hilton thing hurt me because, now he goes out with the neck injury. They don't know. See, I don't like when guys go out with injuries and there's no prognosis. Yeah. It's almost like, we're not sure how long, it's going to be a week to week. That's not good. When you talk about degenerative disc issues in your neck, it's a problem, right? That's a problem. And Michael Pittman Jr., I like the guy. He's not ready to be a wide receiver one. He's just not, right? You mentioned Paris Campbell. You look at the running back situation after Hilton. After Jonathan Taylor, you got Nyheim Hines. You still have Marlon Mack. So you're going to get all these guys involved. They love the tight ends out there. This is just, to me, it's not starting off the way we thought for a Colts team that we thought was going to make some noise deep into the playoffs. And now it's a what if, right? It's a what if. Last night, I did draft Jonathan Taylor, but my backup, when I came back, I drafted Gus Edwards because I wasn't sure that Jonathan Taylor was going to be as productive as I was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you are getting Taylor, I would say, right, shore up your running back room.
You have to.
As much as you can. So we are done with the preseason, and it's, not many takeaways we could take from the preseason, but just as we are now, preseason is all done. It's basically looking ahead to week 1. So if you have drafts, what has kind of changed the most for you since the preseason? We got 3 weeks of it. It's now ended. What's changed for you the most? Is there anything changed for you? Do you think people are overreacting on something? Just what do you take from the preseason?
Well, what I'll give you is I had 4 drafts this year. 2 of them were before today, and 2 of them are going to be late. So what I've learned is that the running back position is more scarce than I thought it was when I was doing my rankings. When you get inside of that draft and you start seeing them come off the board, and you're like, wait, who's left? There's no running backs left, right? Literally none. So that's one thing that I had to change because everybody knows I'm a huge wide receiver guy. Love Calvin Ridley. I'm still going to stand by that take. He's going to be the number 1 receiver this year. But my thing was I was all ready to go in and take Calvin Ridley in the first round. But then when I started to see the mock drafts and my drafts, these running backs going, I'm like, if I take him, I'm winding up with nothing on the back end. So it really changed my draft philosophy to where you have to get a number 1 running back with your first round. You have to, because if not, your number 1 back is going to be a guy like Myles Gaskin. That's who you're relying on. Now, I like him as a flex or not as my number 1. So that's what's changed for me. It's just the philosophy of receiver over running back, just because of how scarce that position is.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the overreactions for the rookie quarterbacks. Justin Fields has looked great, but let's temper the expectations a little bit. First of all, he's not going to start maybe for the first couple of weeks. Second of all, when he does go in, don't expect what we've seen immediately in the preseason to happen in the regular season. Expect growing pains. This Matt Nagy offense has never been a good passing offense, so let's kind of count that in as an obstacle as well for Justin Fields to kind of get over. Don't expect it to 100% just be fantastic, and he goes in and he's lighting it up and he's getting you all these points. Temper expectations a little bit. Trey Lance, let's temper expectations a little bit. It's likely going to be that Jimmy Garoppolo is the starter, and if Trey Lance does go in, it's going to be on a little bit of gadget plays. It's going to be maybe when they want to run the ball at the end of the game, they'll use Trey Lance in that kind of situation, whatever the case. But temper expectations. Trevor Lawrence is the number 1 quarterback in this draft class, and the only rookie I think that you have to draft. The other ones, Justin Fields, too risky. Trey Lance is too risky. Zach Wilson, it's risky just because we don't know what the Jets are. It could potentially be okay. We know he's starting, but we just don't know how the Jets are going to be. The only rookie quarterback I think is an actual legitimate option is Trevor Lawrence. It's just whether or not you want to take him because he's going a little bit higher up draft boards. It's whether or not you want to pay a little bit of a higher price for him. But I think it could potentially work out. The other ones, I think preseason just a large overreaction to what these guys did.
I completely agree, man. 100%. Trevor Lawrence, he's going to get the snaps. The other guys, you don't know when they're going to play. Like you said, relax, people. It's preseason. They're throwing against the 2s and 3s as well. So everybody calm down and just temper your expectations.
I think that's a great way to end this. WinDailySports.com. Tony, I'm going to love our little Monday, Wednesday chats here.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man.
Monday, Wednesdays are key days for fantasy football, so I'm glad I get to spend those with you. It was a great one today. You can follow Tony at Cutillo23. What else you got going on? All the other things that you can post.
Oh, man, a number of things, right?
Every day. The time for that?
All you need to do is follow at Cutillo23, follow Win Daily Sports, follow The Gambler. You're going to see all the content, man. That's all you need to do. We're all over the place, man. So just follow me and you'll get something at least 2-3 times a day.
I love it. And you can follow me at Jansen34, of course, here all the time, 5 o'clock at Win Daily Sports live, and also DFS content on our YouTube channel, Win Daily Sports. That is it for us. We'll be back tomorrow here at WinDailySports.com.